Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Susan Welton, Oracle Marketing Manager at Perficient, and I'm excited to be moderating today's webinar, Demystifying the Move from HFM to Financial Consolidation and Close. Time permitting, we will have a Q&A session at the end of today's event. So please type your questions into the Questions tab that you should see located on the right of your screen. And feel free to do that anytime throughout today's webinar. As a question arises, just go ahead and jot it down so that you don't forget it. Two questions often come up with our online events. Can I watch the webinar again? Is there a recording available, or can I get a copy of the slides? And the answer to both of these questions is yes. We will have that information available and we'll email you probably later this week. You should see that email coming through. Without further delay, I'd like to introduce today's speakers, Don Ford and Matt Hopkins. Don is an accomplished Hyperion applications consultant with more than 18 years of experience in information technology consulting. He has extensive experience with business process analysis, business process reengineering, and project program management. Matt is a senior project manager in our CPM practice with more than 25 years leading and performing financial systems analysis, project management, system implementation, business process design, software selection, and data migration. Just want to give you a brief overview of what you can expect for today's presentation. I just provided the introductions. The first thing we're going to do is dive into some key considerations for cloud consolidation implementations. And I think one of the most interesting parts of the session perhaps today is those common misconceptions that you may have heard about moving to the cloud. And we're going to address those and debunk those misconceptions. We're going to have a deeper dive into how you can leverage dimensionality for your optimal efficiency. We'll touch upon data integrations and reporting. We'll talk about the value of change management in any type of project of this nature where you're making a move from on-prem to cloud and how important that is. And then, as I said, time permitting, we will have a Q&A session. Just want to give you a little background on Perficient if you're unfamiliar with our company. We have more than 35 global locations, of course, across the world. We have revenue of over half a billion, or we're trending toward $1 billion at this point in time. We have 4,500 colleagues across the company. One of the things I do like to touch upon as well is our repeat business rate. And I think the fact that we have that metric at greater than 90% is just a testament to our customer success. But one of the things that I think that it further reflects is that projects that we may have first initiated with a particular company, it doesn't really stop there because Perficient has so many enterprise partnerships across the company. We often then, after an Oracle project, we might have, say, a pivotal project, or we might have an Adobe project that we do for a company. So the fact that we have those alliance partnerships with major technology vendors is just a really added benefit for our customers because we can help you in so many different areas. From a delivery perspective, we are a global delivery company, a digital consultancy, and we have more than 25 offices across the United States alone, but we also have global delivery centers in China, India, Eastern Europe, and Latin America. And we do have a domestic delivery center in Lafayette, Louisiana. At this point in time, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Don Ford, who's going to dive a little bit deeper into our Oracle National Business Unit. Don, take it away.
Thank you very much, Susan. And again, thanks everyone for attending our webinar this morning. One of the things just to add on to what Susan mentioned is to talk a little bit about the Oracle practice here at Perficient. Here at Perficient, again, we really kind of deliver across the Oracle spectrum, across ERP, supply chain, human capital management, EPM, which we're going to be basically spending quite a bit of time on this morning, as well as analytics. And really our team is highly experienced, having over 19 years of experience with a number of specializations with thousands of deployments. As you can imagine, we basically serve a number of different industries from healthcare, manufacturing, financial services, et cetera. And from a practice standpoint, we've been touted in Gartner and Forrester in terms of our capabilities and the quality of which we've delivered. Additionally, from a training perspective across kind of these various domains, we're able to really kind of train and support customers and prospective customers across these technologies. And we'll also touch a little bit on training toward the end. So that is just kind of a quick introduction to the Oracle practice here at Proficient. Additionally, inside of enterprise performance management, really kind of the bread and butter, if you will, of kind of our Oracle practice and our focus, we really kind of deliver across the entire spectrum of Oracle EPM, and that would include everything in terms of financial close and consolidations, business process analysis, account reconciliation, obviously budgeting and forecasting, and several others. And really, this expertise, as we talked about a few moments ago, is really supported by the active, I would say, consultants that we have delivering across these various technologies. So it really doesn't matter in terms of what your, initiative or product is in the Oracle EPM space. Typically, Proficient has expertise and been there, done that expertise to benefit you. From a thought leadership standpoint, Proficient is always actively pushing, our knowledge, our experience into via a number of different formats. First and foremost is probably blogging. Obviously, we're constantly kind of adding as we're gaining experience for the number of different points we have via a Proficient blog site, where anybody may be able to kind of go in and kind of benefit from our areas of expertise across planning and consolidations and S space, etc. We also do webinars such as these. They're really kind of tight. Our delivery success, new features and functionalities that may be delivered with Oracle functionality. And then we also have what we call kind of deep dives, which are a little bit more of a investment from a time standpoint, where we really kind of do a deep dive on a particular topic, like how to overcome financial close challenges, and really share our knowledge and expertise with kind of the Oracle practitioners that way. So when you think about thought leadership and Oracle EPM, obviously Proficient is at the forefront with our blogging, our webinars, and our guides. And then, like I said, lastly, we do a fair bit of training across everything in the EPM landscape, really kind of touching on, as you can see here in the upper right-hand corner, everything in the planning space, profitability and costs, smart view, and of course, financial close, and several others. All right. So, um, as all of you have joined us this morning, again, we thank you for attending. And what we're going to now talk about is some of the key considerations for moving from Hyperion Financial Management to cloud consolidations. Obviously, Oracle's very popular on-premise product, Hyperion 11.124, was announced that Premier support was ending in December of this year. That has really caused a number of our customers to really take a step back and really examine, okay, hey, I don't want to go into 2022 without Premier support. I'm really now faced with a pivotal decision. Do I take the 11.2 upgrade, or do I replace Hyperion Financial Management with cloud consolidations? And this pivotal decision point has really allowed customers to really kind of take a step back and really examine what's the best decision for them. And as a result of myself and Matt and several of our colleagues having these discussions with a number of customers, we wanted to kind of share some of those details, some of those basically a framework for making this decision with all of you. And one of the things that we've heard over and over and over, especially when you think about cloud consolidations, is a series of common misconceptions. And one of the things that we wanted to do as a part of this webinar is just share some of those with you, and just what our experience has been, and how those items may not necessarily be true, and how we address those. So the first misconception about cloud consolidations is it's difficult to implement. Obviously, if a lot of you probably are in the technology or IT space, and we know that running projects can indeed be time consuming and difficult. However, Proficient, as we talked about before and a couple slides ago, this is indeed our bread and butter. This is indeed what we do, day in and day out, week in and week out. However, we do have a very simple, easy to follow framework, which we're going to get into in some of these later slides, to really de-risk your jump from HFM to cloud consolidations. Another item that we often hear, another misconception is, hey, is cloud consolidations really as flexible as HFM? I'm really worried about the rigidity of cloud consolidations. That too is a misconception. It's just not true. Almost everything that you can do in Hyperion Financial Management can be done in cloud consolidations. You may have to do it just a slightly different way. But again, that's where our expertise really fills in those gaps and assists you with basically making the cloud consolidation solution as flexible and as dynamic as you need it. Another common misconception, hey, moving to cloud consolidation is going to result in poor performance or a degraded end user experience. That true too is not necessarily true. We've had a number of cloud deployments and cloud consolidations where they've been, relatively complex, relatively large, and also my colleague Matt is going to kind of chime in on some of the things that Oracle is doing to really de-risk this component and really address some of the performance misconceptions that have been out there. And then lastly, another common misconception is, hey, will this move to cloud consolidations require a significant amount of effort to retrain and re-empower my end users? Hey, I have, maybe 50 or maybe even 100 end users who really like HFM. It's really working for us. And this is going to be a monumental effort to get them over to cloud consolidations. And again, this is where our framework that we're going to introduce here in a moment is designed to address that very point. Matt, would you like to talk a little bit about some of the significant performance improvements that Oracle's introduced?
Yes, absolutely, Don. Thank you. So, for a lot of people out there that may have been doing some research on HFM to consolidations in the cloud, one of the things that we hear is that oh, we don't want to impact our performance. It's slow enough as it is, or we really need fast performance. And so Oracle's very sensitive to this, and as you know, and as Don has covered. Consolidations is, it's very similar to HFM. So the transition as far as skills and what is done, it's very simple. However, it is a separate application, but it has a lot of the same look and feel as what HFM has, which from a change management perspective is a lot easier for organizations to be able to tackle. But when we get to the actual performance, Oracle has very recently come out with a lot of things to help some of those larger global companies in the performance area. So there's been some additional functionality that they've developed for certain customers. It's consolidation by view, which is it's kind of a net new option. And then in addition to that, Oracle has gone in and is beta testing right now a different dimensionality model where certain dimensions, such as account, are no longer dense; they're now sparse. So I know I'm getting down a little bit into the technical details, but what that really does is they have been able to decrease database sizes by 75% and been able to speed up consolidations by a similar amount. So Perficient right now is actually working with a model that Oracle has provided to Perficient as one of their key implementers, and we are going through and testing that. So I actually even have a client that is going through and as part of that beta process as well. So speed to consolidation, Oracle has really taken that to heart and is making some great strides in that area. Back to you, Don.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. So, one of the things I also want to kind of share with you is this quote by Rich Wilkie, VP of Product Management at Oracle, really kind of the person who has educated myself and Matt and a number of the Perficient team members just in terms of, the art of the possible in terms of cloud consolidations. And I really like this quote because it really kind of highlights essentially what you get with cloud consolidations. And in this, what he talks about is that, hey, when you think about finance and financial close, the idea of being able to use a best-in-class solution that facilitates flexibility and speed and transparency is what almost every organization desires. And when you think about that inflection point that we talked about a few moments ago of weighing out an 11.2 upgrade versus moving to the cloud consolidations platform, that's how you get best in class financial closing consolidations, not just by staying to the status quo, but really using this as an opportunity driven by the premier support end date of 11.124 to really change the narrative, to really go beyond, and to really provide a better, more sophisticated, more accurate and transparent and dynamic platform for all of the people that is involved with financial close and analysis. Okay? So the question is, what are those considerations? How do I do it? What questions do I ask? And really, again, as a result of kind of our discussions that we've had with a number of customers, we've kind of boiled those considerations down to probably 4 different areas, right? First of which is going to be kind of goals and opportunities. Hey, how do we analyze the complexity and customizations? Hey, what do we do about scalability? And then process and data alignment. Okay, so let's just take a quick trip or a deep dive into each one of these. So the first is going to be goals and opportunities. So you think about, hey, how do I empower end users, right, to really accomplish more? What's the current level of satisfaction with Hyperion Financial Management? As you can imagine, people who have been on Hyperion Financial Management for the better part of a decade or more. Obviously, for a lot of people, as I talked about before, it's a very stable product, but it can also be very legacy in terms of its rigidity. You know what I mean? And probably if it was implemented, I would say 5 years ago or 10 years ago, the business, the organization, a lot of things could have changed. Are there things that are just not included in the Hyperion Financial Management data set that really need to be? How do I give the users, or how do I basically satisfy the need for leadership, leaning on me with different questions, different requirements, and different requests when I'm kind of dealing with obviously with a legacy product that's a little bit rigid in terms of its nature? Our point is use this opportunity to really kind of reimagine what your close and consolidation solution can be on Oracle EPM's cloud platform. The next item is, complexity and customization. As a lot of you probably already know, in terms of HFM, just in terms of the nature of how it works, is that you do have the ability to write a lot of custom rules. A lot of those custom rules are very, very specific to your particular installation or implementation of Hyperion Financial Management. But obviously, with that specificity comes a certain amount of complexity and a certain amount of rigidity. How do I, move beyond that and basically try and implement what we would call best practices as a part of your financial close and consolidation process? What Oracle has done with financial close and consolidations is taken all of those common things that every single customer would have to leverage as a part of their HFM implementation and built that into the product, built that in as a best practice, built that in as a configuration, thereby eliminating the need for all this rigidity and customization. That again allows you to have a light, dynamic application that can always be evolving, always transforming with the needs of the organization. And I think when you think about the challenge of the status quo, that's what all high-performing organizations desire to do, is to constantly be on the edge, delivering the best value possible, and really not settling. Settling because you're limited with having your hands basically handcuffed by technology. Okay, the next one is scalability, right? How scalable is the current HFM solution, right? Does it require a significant number of resources just to keep the lights on, just to keep things moving in the right direction, just to quote unquote babysit it? We've also run into a number of customers who've kind of moved, a number of them from on-premise to the cloud, is they say, man, hey, we are really struggling with finding, on-premise technical expertise. Sometimes finding individuals with the right skill set to kind of manage our environment is not easy. Sometimes it takes a number of cycles to actually find the right person and then hire and then retain that individual. Obviously, with the cloud, that is less of a concern because again, when you think about moving to our SaaS model, Oracle is handling a lot of that backend infrastructure for you, allowing you to really focus and zero in on what's important for your accounting and close and FP&A related staff. So again, that transformation and making the environment scalable, reducing kind of the load and the technical experts needs to your internal staff, that's all a part of evaluation in terms of, hey, is now the right time to make the move from on-premise solution to a cloud-based solution? Okay. And then lastly, process and data, right? Which is a big one, right? How do I know if the current processes that I'm leveraging, right, are really visible to all stakeholders? I mean, we've kind of all had situations where we're kind of going through the close cycle and people kind of show in Excel or other tools, hey, here's kind of the run list, here's the punch list, here's the close calendar, and it's normally kind of tightly controlled with a small group of stakeholders. And there's a lot of things being done with email. What you get with the Oracle Close and Consolidation solution is a dynamic tool that allows a lot of visibility to a number of stakeholders easily and concisely. And it also drives up efficiency, right? In terms of you having to regurgitate and re-push information down. It almost serves as a service model where people can basically feed themselves. And then obviously we can also address process things where you don't have to reconsolidate over and over and over because you've taken a step back from a process standpoint and basically addressed any issues that may cause any inefficiencies for your current close process by building into the future state as a part of your cloud consolidations migration. So taking an opportunity to step back on process, take a step back on data, all is a part of a potential move to Oracle Cloud Consolidations. Okay, so when you think about those key questions and those 4 considerations, the next question is, okay, I'm still kind of just trying to decide. I have the upgrade on one side, I have a cloud consolidations migration on the other. If I am indeed asking myself these questions, and I do think there's an opportunity, how do we do it? How do I make the jump? And that's exactly where Matt is going to go next and explain to you a little bit about our framework and how we can address, again, some of those items I talked about before in terms of some of the misconceptions, as well as how do we answer some of the critical questions that we just discussed as a part of our key considerations. With Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Don. So looking at how we do it, and Don has talked a little bit about our framework that we have. So as we look at these 5 major components, what Perficient has done is that we have created a specific framework and approach to do these HFM to FCC consolidations. Because we've worked with HFM for years and we know how people have been using it, their affinity for some of the features, some of their distaste for others perhaps. And so looking at the new consolidation application, how it processes data, how it works, we've known that we needed to create this mapping basically of a roadmap from HFM into consolidations. So we looked at 5 key areas. The first one being configuration and talking about how the application consolidations actually needs to be configured versus how HFM needs to be configured. We looked at the data. How does consolidations process data? What does it do with it? What's the additional data that we can now bring into the application? And how does HFM application data map to that? Then we also took a hard look at the artifacts. And this is really kind of a key area where when we talk about best practices, what Oracle has done is that they have looked at years of HFM comments, suggestions for improvement, and they have gone in and made these pre-built best practice capabilities within the application that a lot of our customers are seeing a lot of benefit out of. So it's quicker speed to implementation, and then also once you're up and running, it's a much more stable platform, and it's one that is updated on a frequent basis with the Oracle updates. And then down here at the bottom, as we look at change management, and we talked a little bit about how HFM and consolidations are fairly similar, but there are some differences. And we've come up with a way to really kind of help retrain that HFM mindset into now this is the consolidation mindset. And so it makes that transition a lot easier and a lot smoother so that people feel like they understand now what they're going to be doing and how to do those things. And then on the final component, deployment, really what is the best way to deploy this new application so that it's almost seamless to the end user. Although the back end, some of the processing is notably different, what we want it to do is to be a very easy transition. And so we focus on these areas. And as we look a little bit further into this presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the key components of the framework that we built. But in the interim, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the actual details, especially around dimensionality and then some of the new features and functionality. So as we look at dimensionality, so the dimensions within consolidations have changed. And you can see here on this slide, I have on the left, we have HFM, and then on the right, I have the new consolidation application. So a lot of these are identical, and some of these are fairly similar, but on the right-hand side, you can see that I've got more, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Really, I think the thing to note on the consolidations dimensionality is that, once again, this is based on years of working with HFM and the input that Oracle has received from its customer base about things that are needed, things that are used, and where they'd like to see the applications go. And so on this next slide, virtually identical, you can see on the left, we have HFM and consolidations on the right, and then I've done a mapping for you. So for those of you that are familiar with the value dimension in HFM, now it's really split to two new dimensions within consolidations. We have the currency dimension and then the consolidation dimension. And really, by splitting it into two now, it allows for some pre-built functionality, especially around translations and your CTA, or currency translation adjustment, so that the application can take that data and do more automation with it and more pre-built and delivered capabilities with it. You can also see on the custom dimensions in HFM, you could have one custom dimension up to an unlimited amount. And I'm using my quotes here because really there is a limit to it. There's a practical limit to it. But, you know, a lot of customers would put in certain dimensions into the custom dimensions really to help track where the data was coming from, and then also to we would put calculations in that custom dimension, things like that that are now really part of the actual application. So as you look at the right-hand side, we've already talked about the currency and consolidation dimensions. You can see some of the new added ones. So they added data source. So that was always a custom dimension that almost all of our customers wanted to include so that they understood, where did this data come from? Was this from a trial balance load? Was this from a journal? So this is a way that the application now tracks that automatically for you. And then you see we've got the movement dimension, and this is a way where we can actually automate the statement of cash flows. And so the movement dimension is a huge benefit for automating that cash flow. So out of the box, we're able to take this dimension and then create a statement of cash flows much easier than what we could have done before. And then you see we still have the capability to have custom dimensions within the new consolidation application. There are 4 custom dimensions. If you use MultiGap, and I'll talk about that in a minute, that consumes one of those dimensions. And then you also have 3 other dimensions if you need them. And so just a couple of bullets really to talk about the new dimensionality. With MultiGap, what that really means, it's a way to support the multiple accounting requirements of different entities. The perfect example of that is for IFRS. So it's a way for you to be able to track from a GAAP set of books, track your adjustments, and create that IFRS set of books so that you can now do that multiple reporting. So there's an option for IFRS and then other reporting entities or requirements you might have. You can use that MultiGap dimension to help you do that. Also, something to call out is that the account dimension, some of it is pre-seeded. And so what that does for you is it allows you to accept these Oracle updates, which come every month. And Don talked a little bit about how the application will grow with you. So every month there's updates to the consolidation application. And by having that pre-seeded account dimension, it allows you to grow with the updates that Oracle sends out, and allows you to grow your organization as you need to fit it all within that standardized framework. Now, one thing on this third bullet is we talk about the 4 custom dimensions. Really, if you're doing financial reporting, 3 or 4 custom dimensions is really all that you need. And that is a little bit of a shift where we've seen a lot of customers that have, maybe try to get 5 or 6 dimensions in. And really what they're trying to do is to do management reporting within their consolidation system, which I know from talking to a lot of controllers, it's very frustrating because now they have a lot of additional data in their application, and plus they have data that really takes up processing time, and it's more focused on doing that management reporting. With the new model that has come out from Oracle and the way that they sell these products, there are additional applications that you get with the enterprise licensing model. So there's planning, there's S-based reporting cubes. And what that does is it takes the management reporting effort out of the consolidation application and allows you to use custom built tools to do that. Now, if you still want to do some management reporting in the consolidation tool, sure, there's space to do it if you can fit it within that framework. However, you've got all these other tools that are purpose-built for that are available for you. We've already talked a little bit about that movement dimension, but really creating the out-of-the-box cash flow, it's a huge benefit to an implementation as well as ongoing processing, because that's something that you can standardize. It's adjustable, and it can fit your specific needs. And then that source dimension allows you to track where your data is coming from. And like I said, it's been a standard dimension, custom dimension, probably in 90% of our HFM implementations in the past. So as we go on, now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the data integration and reporting. And one of the things, as we look at what the application does, as you look at consolidations, Oracle is putting a lot of R&D into the cloud applications. HFM, it's been a mainstay of theirs for years. However, all of the new development is going into these new applications, and you can see that in the development of the cloud application, and then you can see that in some of the features and functionality that is currently being built. So as we look at data integrations, really data management, or DM, it's the integration tool used in the cloud. And even everyone loves FDMEE, but FDMEE is actually even being rebranded as data management. But there's a lot of benefits to working with data management with the cloud applications. So you combine that with the integration agent, and you're able to use a lot more scripting tools to be able to load your data into the application, being able to manipulate that data in the application, as well as if you need to export that data, it's just a lot easier to do, and that interface is a lot simpler for people to use. In fact, you still have a interface very similar to what is in FDMEE, but there's also a new interface that looks completely different, completely cleaner. So it's a lot easier to map and do those integrations. It will also allow you to directly connect to these sources that you need to. And I'm not just talking about Oracle applications or sources, I'm talking about anything. data lakes, SAP, anything that you might want to be able to import or export data to using data management with this integration agent. It's just a lot simpler to do, and you can once again direct connect to them. And then this next bullet, it is similar to FDMEE. So once again, as we look at change management, it's simple for people to make that switch from on-premises to the cloud. And then finally, what I have on here, there is EPM Automate, which is it's a light footprint on-premise cloud utility that helps you to connect to these different data sources, whether they're in the cloud or on-premise. And then one of the things that it will allow you to do is basically almost anything that you can do within the user interface, you can set up to automate that through EPM Automate. So if you want to run data loads, if you want to run consolidations, doing backups, exporting those backups to other servers so that you have them, then all of that exists. So it's a tool that is very flexible and something that on-premise you had to go and do something else to get that type of capability. So just some of the features and functionalities there on data integrations. Looking at reporting. So for everyone that loves their reporting tools, the Financial Reporting Studio and SmartView, those still exist within the application. And part of our framework that we built looks at how to migrate Financial Reporting Studio and SmartView reports to the new application, because with the change in dimensionality, there are some tweaks, but we've kind of built out our toolkit with tips and tricks to make that process go much easier and much smoother. But then also some of the really exciting things looking at Oracle R&D is that they've created this management reporting user interface, which is a new way to create kind of those boardroom ready type reports. And it's something I think that ultimately we may see that where they replace FR Studio with this, it's just a much easier to use interface to create your reports. It allows you to input graphs and other data within your reports, create report books much easier. So kind of new cutting edge option here that's coming out. And once again, this is all on the consolidation cloud set of tools. There's also some pre-designed or predefined financial reports. So kind of out of the box, there are these reports that exist. If you'd like to take advantage of that, you might be able to leverage that instead of creating other reports. Something else that's also exciting is the ability to have configurable dashboards and infolets. And so, the dashboards are very easy to graphically look at where your data is and how it's distributed. You can configure them to do basically anything you would expect a report to be able to do. And then the infolets are just little snapshots of information, graphical in nature that you can look at. Once again, it's a lot easier way to get just that quick look at where your data is, what it looks like, without having to pull data into a SmartView and analyze it. So a lot of exciting things really, as I said, around the new consolidation application and the direction that Oracle is taking this. So they're investing a lot of money into this, and it shows in some of the capabilities of the new application. So I'll pause there. Don, do you have anything to add from what I've said? Otherwise, I can jump right into the change management.
No, that was good, Matt. The only thing I was just going to say, just related to dimensionality, was that, yeah, it was a really good illustration in terms of the correlation between what you get in cloud consolidations and legacy HFM. And one of the things I just want to impress upon all the people listening on the webinar today is that is indeed something that Perficient is happy to kind of assist in helping you kind of map that out, especially if your dimensionality is a little bit different from what we displayed, because we know there's a lot of different variations in terms of how people are using the dimensionality in HFM currently. But that is then where what Matt's going to get into our framework really helps you bridge that gap and help you map it to what you get out of the box with cloud consolidations and how that can really support reporting. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Don. So looking at change management, so as we talked about earlier, looking at this new framework that Perficient's built to go from HFM to consolidations, we think it's really the way to help during the implementation to really educate the project team, get them on a point where they can understand what the new applications do quickly. We can make implementation decisions quicker, and then it helps us also pass out to the broader user audience how to use the applications. So as we look at this framework that we have, we've identified some key areas that we talk about. And as we look under configuration, we've already talked some about dimensionality. So how has the dimensionality changed of, what the value dimension isn't there anymore? How do I now use the consolidation and the currency dimension to get the data that I need to? As we look at the capabilities around security has changed, and it's a lot easier to manage now. And we kind of walk everyone through that and hit on these key areas. As we look at data, we take a look at your existing data and what is the best way to extract that out of HFM, where we've built some tools to be able to grab that data and then now load it into the new application. One of the key things under artifacts, looking at how we take calculations that are built within HFM and now map those to the predefined capabilities within the application, so that now there's not going to be a lot of maintenance on the HFM rules or application, how we can leverage that pre-built content to recreate what you're currently doing. And so we spent a lot of time analyzing that and how to best make those changes. And then taking a look at the final change management, really, taking your current process, mapping that to the new process, which candidly hasn't changed that much, except that the intent is that your close will go much faster now, and how to go ahead and make that change for your user community so that they understand what's going to happen. And then as we need to, developing training and working sessions to compare and contrast the HFM to consolidations applications. And then as we take a look at the deployment, we can do parallel testing, make sure that you're getting the same results, that we're seeing the same data. We can provide hypercare, so post-life support to ensure that you guys are able to manage the application, that we don't have any issues. SupportNet is an offering from Perficient where we can stay on to help over a period of years if needed, really with managed services, providing any support you need. If you need a new report or anything like that, functionality oriented, want to create a new rule, things like that, we can help with that, as well as providing any regression testing that might be necessary. So this framework, really, this is all about going from HFM to the new consolidation model and how we can streamline that process and make the implementation much easier and simpler. And so within change management, change management for projects, there's always kind of a standard approach that we want to try to do. As we look here at a sample high-level project plan, we're still going to go through those key requirements that are needed for an implementation. And sometimes, to Don's point, HFM, you may have had it for several years and have not made any changes to the application, knowing that either it was limited or you just didn't want to invest the time knowing you're going to make a change. So this is where we open up that door and say, what else do you need your application to do beyond what it does now. So now we're not only just mapping current HFM functionality to new applications, but identifying if there is anything else that you might need. Within that design phase, we go through, map that to the capabilities of the software. And once again, this is a key area where that framework comes into play that allows us to go much quicker. If we need to prototype something, meaning show you something so that you can actually see how it's going to work, because some of us are much more hands-on. We prefer to see things in real time versus conceptually. So we can do that during the design phase. Then the build, which is really the true core build of the application, doing the configuration, loading your data, going through some additional little prototype sessions as appropriate, migrating data, validation, things like that happen during that time frame. And then during the test, really setting expectations around what we're going to test, testing timelines, and then as we get into deploy, and this is once again where that change management really comes into play, is covering what we're going to do and who's going to be involved, so that people know their role in the project. So a lot of moving parts to a project, as I'm sure everyone knows, but we have standard processes and deliverables from the Perficient side to help manage that project and help manage that change. And so as we look at some of the key deliverables that you might see in one of our projects, we'll always have a detailed Microsoft project plan, a solution design document listing out exactly what the application is supposed to do, a RAID log to make sure that we have identified any issues or challenges. We meet weekly at a minimum to talk through where we are in the project. We have test scripts so that we know what we're going to test, how we're going to test it, and that we've covered everything that the application needs to do. And then an administration guide, which is really your owner manual of the application. This is what it's designed to do. This is how you maintain it. Things like that are in the administration guide. We also have a training plan for training of the core team if needed, to make sure that they know of the changes coming in the new cloud consolidation tool, as well as do we need to have a training plan for end users to manage whatever change might be in the application, which once again, going from HFM to consolidations, it's not really that significant. So much easier to manage that type of change management. And then any training material, complementary training material for the training. So definitely, some key things that we look to include as appropriate for implementations, really to help manage that change and make the project go much smoother. And I'll pause there, Don. And anything to add from your side on deliverables or on our approach to projects?
No, not at all. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, absolutely. And then as we look at just kind of next steps for the people on the phone, one of the things that we'd like to offer is we call it a 1-hour virtual lunch, and really that's with one of the Perficient solution architects, someone such as Don or myself, really to talk through challenges or questions you might have about doing this change from HFM to consolidations. And we call it 1 hour. It could be 30 minutes. It could be longer. What we want to do is make sure that we have the opportunity to talk through the specific challenges that you might have, or concerns that you might have, so that we can walk you through really, how do we go through these projects? How is the configuration different? What do we do with the data? Really, that framework that we've built, kind of walk you through that to see if you have any changes or questions, pardon me, for us as we look at this. So, and I guess for people that are online, if you can enter into the, I think there's a question button on the webinar, If you would like to participate in one of these virtual lunches or a working session with one of the Perficient experts, we would like for you to key in, just give us a heads up that you would like to do that, identify who you are, and we'll reach out to you and get something scheduled so that we can have an opportunity really to answer your questions. And you know, if you have any concerns, we can talk through those and address those. So I'll give everyone a minute to find that button, and you could also drop that into the chat window if you can't get to the question button. But feel free to send something to the to Don and myself as a panelist, and we'd be happy to help with that. So I'll go ahead and move on. Oracle Cloud training. Really, I'd like to point out that some of the different options that we have for training. Perficient has a training center which is based in Houston, Texas. So if you would like to do classroom training on site, which of course right now no one really wants to go on site, but in the future we have an on-site capability in Houston. Really, it gets people away from distractions and allows people to focus on the training at hand. We can also deliver training in your classroom or on site at your location. We also have the capacity to do live virtual classes, leveraging KeyTeach, which is our training partner, with Perficient instructors, really to walk you through the applications and what they do. And then once again, if you have custom training needs, we're able to develop that as well. So not only around just standard consolidations for either core project team or for end users, but if you have any additional custom training that needs to be created around your EPM products, we can certainly help with that. So something to keep in mind as we go through an implementation process, and that change management training is always a key component of that. I'd also like to point out we've got various links here on the left where you can follow Perficient. Don and myself are frequent contributors to the Perficient blogging environment. So we have a host of other people where we write blogs around things such as the consolidations and some of the ways to address those challenges that people might have. Also, I'd like to point out that with Kscope coming up, Perficient is presenting 3 different tracks. The first one follows the consolidation journey of one of our clients. So that one might be interesting for the folks here on the phone to kind of see how one of our clients went through the consolidation process, legacy HFM to consolidations. We also cover planning as well as S-Base. And then really at any of the major conferences, please look for Perficient speakers. We speak at all of these conferences and would love to have you folks participate. Don, I'll go ahead and pause. Anything else to add at this point?
Yeah, no, I was just going to add, Matt, that thanks so much for plugging Kscope. I'll be presenting, as you mentioned, there at Kscope. It will indeed be a virtual event. It'll be kind of a planning success story for, again, another one of our clients. Really happy to be co-presenting with our client Transplace on that one. And we'll also be talking a little bit about freeform planning, or S-Base 21C. How did we choose? That'll be another one of the Perficient sessions in Kscope. So we just encourage all of you just to continue to reach out and kind of be a part of the Oracle network from Kscope, and collaborate in some of the other different conferences. And at any point, if you do see us, don't hesitate to stop us. We'd love to engage and talk with you.
Thank you, Don. And I think so that's the end of the presentation. I think we've got a few minutes left. I don't know if Courtney, if we have time for any questions or not, but certainly if we can't answer anything now, we would love to hear from folks, and definitely around that virtual lunch. Please let us know if you're interested. Courtney, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Matt. As a reminder, we're now going to open up the call for some questions. We do have a couple that have come in via chat, but if you haven't had a chance to ask your questions yet, go ahead and take the time now to put that into the question tab. And if we run out of time, since we're so close to the top of the hour, we would be happy to reach out to you individually after today's event. So with that, I'll get right to it with a couple of the questions that have come in. First one I see here is from Mohan. He'd like to know, do you need more people for a cloud consolidation project versus HFM?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Don. I can take that one if you'd like. I would say no, you don't actually. The cloud consolidation team actually would be even a little bit smaller. If you have an existing HFM implementation, then the fact that the project team would already know how those applications work, are already familiar with the key concepts, which have not changed. It's just some of the execution of that are much smaller team. And then, as we look definitely at the infrastructure side with the cloud, a much smaller team than what's needed for an on-premises implementation. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Matt. This is another interesting question. Is consolidations in the cloud really HFM in the cloud?
And I can take that one as well. It is not. Basically, the backend database for HFM, it's a relational database. Consolidations in the cloud is built on Oracle's proven S-based technology. So while a lot of the concepts and the look and feel of the applications are very, very similar, it is not exactly the same. And so a lot more pre-built functionality exists in the new cloud application than what exists in the HFM application. Don, anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, those are beautiful points, Matt. Yeah, I mean, obviously you touch on the underlying database, and I would just also add, the reason why it's not just purely HFM in the cloud is the big change in dimensionality, right? In terms of how now the dimensionality in cloud consolidations is wholly different from what you had in HFM. Thank you, Susan.
Looks like we might have time to squeeze in one more question here. And this is from Emily. Emily wants to know, do you get anything else when you buy FCC?
Don, would you like to take that one? Or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So when you purchase, Oracle Cloud EPM, especially if you purchase an enterprise license. When Matt was talking about how you don't always have to use now cloud consolidations to be your primary reporting engine, well, with the enterprise license, you get a number of the products that I talked about earlier. You would get ARCs, and you get planning, and you get a number of other applications, if you will, under the EPM umbrella. So in addition to cloud consolidations and close, those other products really give you the flexibility to deploy a number of other different business processes, from planning to EDM for enterprise data management to accounts for account reconciliations. And oftentimes we see a number of customers really kind of leveraging that suite, a part of a multi-phase transformation, as they really look to kind of re-platform or standardize on Oracle EPM.
Yeah, and Don, if I can jump in there as well. One of the things also, Close Manager is now integrated with consolidations on the cloud, whereas in the past there were times where it was Close Manager and account reconciliations were bundled together. But now with Close Manager integrated with consolidations, it makes for a much more seamless way to leverage that tool, which is used to really manage your financial close. Thank you.
So with that, we are at the top of the hour. I'll go ahead and close today's event, but I do want to thank our speakers today. Thank you very much to Don Ford and Matt Hopkins for your time and walking us through this topic and really helping to demystify that move from on-prem to the cloud. And as Matt mentioned, please do take an opportunity to follow Perficient online. There are some terrific blogs that are written on these topics that might be relevant to you. So I encourage you to check out those blog posts. And last but not least, you will get a recording to today's event. So if you didn't get a chance to maybe jot down a note, or you want to go back and review a specific segment of today's event, you'll have an opportunity to do so when we share that recording, and feel free to share that with others within your organization. And if you did want to take advantage of that 1 hour lunch with experts in our practice like Dawn or Matt, please feel free to jot that down in the chat. There's still an opportunity to do that, and we'll reach out to you. So thank you again for your time. We do hope that you learned something new, and feel free to reach out at Perficient to Perficient at any point in time, and we'd be happy to help you. So we look forward to seeing you online in future. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.